All right, Shalom. I want to start off by giving all praise, honor, and glory due to Yahweh, by Hashem Yahweh Shai, by Hashem Rakakwadash. I'd like to give double honors unto the apostles and the elders of Great Millstone, who I learned this truth from, and I'd like to say peace and salutations unto the hopefully elect. And today I just want to go into this article from ABC News. Slakia. And it says, Sweden's leader turns to the military for help as gang violence escalates. So I'm just going to go into this article, and bring out a few scriptures. Lord willing, this lesson is edifying and straight to the point. And it says, Stockholm, Sweden's prime minister on Thursday said that he summoned the head of the military to discuss how the armed forces can help police deal with an unprecedented crime wave that has shocked the country with almost daily shootings and bombings. Getting the military involved in crime fighting would be a highly unusual step for Sweden, underscoring the severity of the gang violence that has claimed a dozen lives across the country this month, including teenagers and innocent bystanders. Says Prime Minister Ulf Kristersson said that he would meet with the Armed Forces Supreme Commander and the National Police Commissioner on Friday to explore how the armed forces can help police in their work against the criminal gangs. It wasn't immediately clear in what capacity the military would get involved, but previous proposals have focused on soldiers taking over protection duties from police to free up more resources for crime fighting. Sweden has never before seen anything like this, Kristersson said in a televised speech to the nation. No other country in Europe is seeing anything like this. Sweden has grappled with gang violence for years, but the surge in shootings and bombings in September has been exponential. Slakia has been exceptional. Says 3 people were killed overnight in separate attacks with suspected links to criminal gangs, which often recruit teenagers in socially disadvantaged immigrant neighborhoods to carry out hits. One of the victims was a woman in her 20s who died in an explosion in Uppsala, north of Stockholm. Swedish media said she was likely not the intended target of the attack. Newspaper Dagens Nyheter said an 18-year-old rapper was killed late Wednesday in a shooting outside a sports complex on the outskirts of Stockholm. More than 60 people died in shootings last year in Sweden, the highest figure on record. This year is on track to be the same or worse. Swedish media have linked the latest surge in violence to a feud between rival factions of a criminal gang known as the Foxtrot Network. Earlier this week, 2 powerful blasts ripped through dwellings in central Sweden, wounding at least 3 people and damaging buildings. Slakia. Kristersson's center-right government took power last year with a promise to get tough on crime, but so far hasn't been able to stem the violence. The government and the leftist opposition have been trading accusations over who's to blame for this situation. The opposition says the government has made the country less safe, while Kristersson put the blame on irresponsible migration policies and failed integration. Under the previous government, Sweden long stood out in Europe along with Germany for having liberal immigration policies and welcoming hundreds of thousands of asylum seekers from the Middle East and Africa. Sweden has since sharply restricted migration levels, citing rising crime levels and other social problems. Christensen said that he met with New York Mayor Eric Adams last week to learn from the city's efforts to fight crime, including surveillance methods and weapons detection systems. The Prime Minister said that the government is overhauling Sweden's criminal code to give police more powers. Criminals longer sentences and witnesses better protection. Swedish laws aren't designed for gang wars and child soldiers, Christensen said. So yes, pretty much, you have gang wars taking place over in Sweden, Stockholm, Sweden. And as they said, they have a lot of, shootings and bombings that are taking place, over there in Europe. But this is just, these things like this that take place in these other countries are just a foreshadowing of what's going to happen here in America. Because right now, we're still on the verge of, another lockdown, that's going to take place. The government is supposed to shut down, just a lot of things, that are going to take place because we're really, in the midst of Jacob's trouble, because it's on the way. And pretty much like they said, they're trying to get the military involved to pretty much police, Stockholm because of, the violence that is taking place. And ultimately, that's what is going to take place in America, during Jacob's trouble. Martial law is going to be issued where the military is going to pretty much take over, as the law, So I'm going to start in the book of Matthew, chapter 24 and verse 7. And it says, "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places." So, in the midst of Jacob's trouble, and I said we're in the midst, so Slakia, we're at the brink of Jacob's trouble, because we're not in it yet, but it's on the way, and this is what's coming, But, you have these other nations that are pretty much going to be, fighting against each other, But on a grander scale, these nations that are going to be against each other, primarily Russia and America, during World War III, and America's allies versus, Russia's allies, ultimately. But even then, all of America's allies are going to ultimately, turn on her, They're going to shoot their bombs over here as well, shoot their missiles, because it's prophesied that America would be, destroyed. But before that happens, Jacob's trouble has to happen, So I'm going to get that in the book of Jeremiah. Slakia. Jeremiah chapter 30. And verse 6 says, "Ask ye now, and see whether a man doth travail with child. Wherefore do I see every man with his hands on his loins, as a woman in travail, and all faces are turned into paleness? Alas, for that day is great, so that none is like it. It is even the time of Jacob's trouble, but he shall be saved out of it." And yes, the time of Jacob's trouble is going to be, pretty much the worst time on the planet Earth, Now, during 70 AD, the nation of Israel suffered, Jerusalem being sieged by the Romans. But, it's going to be way, this time, that we're living in, the time of Jacob's trouble is going to be way worse than, when Jerusalem was sieged. in 70 AD, because it was compassed about, by the Romans. They were pretty much starved out. The Lord told, Israel to flee into the mountains, and those that pretty much fled, survived, but those that stayed died. Some of our people had to resort to cannibalism, some starved to death, ultimately a lot of them were killed. And that's what's going to take place again. A lot of our people are going to die, because they don't have that hedge of protection, which is this knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of these scriptures, because ultimately, again, let me just grab it. This is what's going to get us through these times, the book of Isaiah chapter 33 and verse 6, and it says, "And wisdom and knowledge shall be the stability of thy times, and strength of salvation. The fear of the Lord is his treasure." And yes, this wisdom is what's going to help us survive these troubling times to come, because it's going to be extremely bad out here. It's going to be so bad that even the Archangel Michael, is going to have to step in on our behalf to help us, because ultimately, there's nothing that we can do, physically to try to save ourselves. This is why our Lord Yahweh Shai has to come back and save us, It's like it is the book of 2 Corinthians chapter 10 and verse 4. And it says, "For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through Yahweh to the pulling down of strongholds." So pretty much, again, there's nothing that we can physically do to, deliver ourselves out of the hand of Esau, Edom. Our Lord Yahweh Shai has to come back and save us, because it doesn't matter if we have weapons or not. But, like it says, the weapons that we have are carnal. Ultimately, this word, is known as, another, the scriptures are known, by a few different names. One thing is known as, as being a sword, because ultimately, this is what we're going to use to slay the dragon, which is Esau, Edom, but ultimately, again, Yahweh Shai is going to come back and deliver us, from this man. But again, there's nothing that we can physically do to take him down, I'm going to go to the book of Revelation, chapter 12. It's lucky. Before I bring that out, I'm going to go to the book of Daniel. Since I mentioned it, the book of Daniel, chapter 12 and verse 1. And it says, "At that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince, which standeth for the children of thy people, and there shall be a time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation, even to that same time. And at that time thy people shall be delivered, everyone that should be found written in the book." Ultimately, the he is that's going to be saved out of Jacob's trouble, and those that are found written in the book, that's going into the elect of the nation of Israel, because they're predestined, from the beginning to be delivered, in a time of trouble, in this time that we're living in, So then I'm going to come back to Revelation chapter